Hey, my creative friends. My name is Shannon from shannonstudio.com. And we are here to talk about a creative life, what it looks like, what mine looks like, what yours might look like, tips to help us to have a more creative life, to see why we even bother to have a creative life, just all the creative things. So that's what we do here to talk about. Hey, Joan, I love seeing your name pop up all the time. Gonna talk about creative things, and so today I'm talking about well, first off, I also talk about Sweden a little bit, and we were gonna go on a ferry, but it rained a lot today. We were gonna have to walk like 45 minutes to get to the ferry, and then be on the ferry outside and then wet, and it was just like I didn't really feel like it. The other gals didn't feel like it, so we just put it off till I think next week. So we'll probably be doing that next week. And then the ferry just kind of goes around some of the different islands. So that'll be fun. We went on the boat a few weekends ago, to the archipelago. Is that how you say it? And that was fun. So I think this ferry will be fun. And Joseph will be coming this time for my little Tuesday outings, for my little bike rides. But we're going to switch it up a little bit. So, hey, Rose. So let's see. To start off with, I got a fabric update. So this go around has taken a little bit longer on my end and their end. I think it was, I just think for them it was coronavirus. They're not meeting in the office. They are all, they were all working remotely. I think they still are for the most part. And, and just the uncertainty with the economy. Some of the launches didn't happen like they should have. So everything is moved around, switched up. So my collection's being pushed back until spring. And so a year from now, basically. A year from now it should be out. So spring, the beginning of spring is usually when that happens. So of 2021. So, but then I told you I sent in updates from the last time. And so I got feedback back. And I wish I could show you the collection as I talk about it, because it would make much more sense. I mean, you'll still get it, but it would make much more sense. So some of the things I worked on is my other collections, a lot of them had, you can see, white based backgrounds. So I tried to make sure I had more colored backgrounds under, the background of the design, which now it's like, I have a little bit too much background color. I could throw in a little more white backgrounds, which is funny. Then one of the patterns, I didn't know what to do with it. I made these patterns of these present looking things, and I didn't know how to design them. So I just sent them in because they will do a lot of the designing if I wanted them to. In fact, they do for other designers. Other designers will just send in pieces of little things, and then they just let their designers run with it. I just particularly like to push myself, go the full design, the design challenge, and do it all. And so, but this one I just didn't know. And so what I did was sent it in and said, I don't know what to do with this. And they looked at it and said, we don't know either, so we're gonna scrap it. So they took that one out. And the nice thing about designs that you don't use is that you can use them for something else. So they took out a design. They pushed one of the colors a little bit more saturated than what I had. I introduced a new color. They pushed it even more. One of the ones was a simple change. And sometimes when you're looking at something, you just don't see it. One of them is to add a multicolored dot to one of the watercolor dots I'm doing. And I just kind of missed it. And I think it would be very cool. I think that will just tie a lot of things together. I'm really excited to do that one. Another is on one of the fabrics, the leaf color doesn't match. And I think the wording they used was it looked old, withered. And it's true, the color does, the color does look like that. Because I didn't know how to separate it or get it or push it in Photoshop, which I'm just going to tell them you can push the colors, because I can't do it, because I'm skilled enough, but these people work in it all the time, so they really know their stuff. I know a little bit of stuff. So that needs to be changed. And then the last one, which I was really surprised, sometimes, you know, you don't know if somebody's going to like something or not. So for instance, one of the text fabrics, I like to add a text. I just love typography and text. And the one I gave them in the very beginning was women's names. And then they brought that back and said, you know, we don't want to leave people out, that sort of thing. So noted that. So they said try something else. And I thought about poems. You have to be careful with poems because some of them are have copyrights that you can't use them. And then that entails like doing a whole process of getting approval from people and stuff. So I thought about the text I was going, hey Tricia, texts that I have between a friend and I took little snippets of those texts and then did a fabric with them. And I was like, I don't know if they're gonna like that. I wasn't sure how I felt about it 100%, but they liked it. I mean, I like it, but I just thought they weren't going to like it. I just thought for sure they're gonna say no. So all of that to get to the point that in the book, A Technique for Producing Ideas. In that book, I think it's James Clear, he talks about 5 stages that you go through in the creative process to come up with ideas. And the last stage, he calls the final stage, and he calls it the gray cold dawn of the morning after. So kind of, it's the stage where you have to put your work out there. You have to show the work. You have to let go of the baby and let people see. And that is a whole different process than when you sit at your desk and you're the only one and you're doing things. Because when you open that up to let people see, that opens you up to their thoughts. And that can be scary sometimes, but let's see. He calls it the cold gray dawn of the morning after. He says also that it requires okay, I had to just like, what? Do not make the mistake of holding your idea close to your chest at this stage. Submit it to the criticism of the judicious. So it's like holding that baby, thinking it's all that. And I do this too. I mean, this is just happens. I remember one time I put an idea out there, and when it came back, they didn't like it, and I remember crying. Because that's what happens in the beginning. It is your little baby, and you do feel that way. And so, like when they sent back the ideas the first time and did not like the collection at all, there was no crying involved. It was just, okay, let's get back to work. But a couple things in that quote. Do not make the mistake of holding your idea close to your chest at this stage. Submit it to the criticism of the judicious. Judicious means those who are good at seeing things, discriminating judgment, wise, sensible, skillful, and they know what's expedient about what needs to be done. They're smart people. So you don't just throw it out on the internet and then just take everybody's criticism that comes back at you. No, that's not it. This is more targeted at people who know what they're doing, who have a good sense of the principles of the things that go with it. So that's one of the things, is that throw it out on Instagram, fine, but don't take those opinions, that criticism, as judicious. Here's another quote from his book. It requires patient working over to make the most ideas fit the exact conditions under which they must work. So you're throwing those ideas out there because you have to get the idea to work for something in some contexts. especially in a professional context. But you have to, ideas are original and useful. Original to you, they don't have to be original to the universe. They just have to be original connections that you make and useful. That's the definition that most people use for a creative idea. And so you have to make that idea fit the criteria that they want, the conditions, how they see it. And there's a whole lot of things that you have to fit in this criteria, particularly for fabric design. I know all categories have their things. And so you have to be able to put the work out there and then have people nitpick it. But they're good people who are nitpicking it. They're good people who know the conditions by which you have to make it work. And so it's a great privilege and honor. They're not the right words. I don't know what the right word is, but it is really helpful. It really makes your work better. Let's see, another idea he has is a good idea has self-expanding qualities. It stimulates those who see it to add to it. And as I was thinking about that idea, I thought, how many ideas have somebody showed me, they've shown it to me, and I just kind of sit there. It's kind of like, it just sits there. But then sometimes people show me an idea and I'm like, oh man, that's so good. You could do this or you could do that. And I know on both sides of that, I know people have looked at my work and just sat there and looked at it like, oh. And then sometimes I've shown them things and other people will go, oh, you could do this or you could do this and this works and that works in it. So I know that from both sides of that good idea and that stimulating process. So that is the idea of showing other people so that they can add to it. Now, you are the originator of the idea. You don't have to take anybody's opinion. You don't have to just assume that they're right. But it gives you something to work with. It gives you something to think about. Hey, Cassie. Oh, my little Cassandra. So some of the ideas that we have are ideas that we just are going to put in our idea book. They're not those kinds of ideas that you share because they're just like learning ideas, building your brain ideas. Leonardo da Vinci did, like in his little notebook of ideas, 730 findings about the flow of water. I shared this before and I'm just still amazed. And 67 words to describe the different types of moving water. Amazing. He's building ideas in his head, but they're not the same kind of ideas that are fully formed that you put out there for other people. In The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp, she says, new collaborations bring new vectors of energy into your static world. So and that energy kind of goes with that, stimulates ideas to add to your ideas. It's like this energy that comes when you start to see good ideas. And I think that was the other thing about James Clear's quote just a minute ago. It's a good idea. And what you're doing, I think, when you do this is you take a good idea and bump it up to a great idea. And that's what can happen when you start to share. Okay, so she says, new collaborations bring new vectors of energy into your static world. When people say they have good chemistry with others, they're not talking about a lab metaphor. They're actually talking about their molecules bounce off your molecules. So that she's saying that there's this actual energy that happens. And I can't argue with that. When I think back of some of the times that when somebody's looking at my stuff, I'm thinking about particular times where somebody's looked at my stuff and they've come up with ideas and it's like this excitement that you go, oh, that's so cool. And you get this, it's this aliveness that comes from being creative. And I talk about that living a creative life makes you feel alive. I think it is those kind of atoms and energy and those things going on in your physical body, in your brain, that really move us into a different state of living. Okay, so she says, you need to rub up against other people. We need, as creative people, a lot of our creativity is isolated by ourselves, doing our own thing at our own desk, but we need to open up. We need to open up and share and get out there. Funny, I see Rose shares her stuff all the time online, just throwing it out there all the time, and I just think it's so fun. Okay, somewhere along, Twyla Thorpe again, somewhere along the line, you're going to need the contributions and judgment of other people. So she's agreeing with James Clear about that process. He's spelling out what the process is in 5 steps. She's doing it from a more esoteric, a more lived kind of thing, that you just need to do those kinds of things where you're rubbing up against other people. And that's not like physical, but you know what I mean. We get in with other people. We don't work in a vacuum. I mean, we do work in a vacuum, so we have to push ourselves out of the vacuum. And she talks about it's important that, again, the same idea that James Clear has, to be very careful who you invite into your creative orbit. She says creative orbit. I love that little visual, that little creative orbit. So how do you do this? If you're not comfortable, if you haven't ever shown your work, those kinds of, how do you start doing that? And so I was thinking about that. The first thing that came to my mind was that you start talking about it. Just say, oh, I'm working on this quilt. I'm working on these masks. I'm working on this, gathering hats for my, I'm thinking about Rose, hats for my, school lunch line thing. And I'm working on, Cassie just did this, what do you call those, Cassie, that head thing you did, where her and her friend went out and collected a bunch of leaves and then made one of those little head things for when you do Polynesian dancing. And it was so cool looking. But I don't think she shared it on any of her Instagram or anything like that. And that's okay. I'm just saying, start talking about it. Start talking about your things. Haku, H-A-K-U, Cassie says. It is really cool looking. And yeah, I want to learn how to do it. I told her, you ought to make a video on how to do this, because I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. So start talking about what you're doing. Just talk about it for friends and just throw it out there. Oh, Cassie, you're really pushing my Hawaiian side. Le po'o le haku. Is that right? Too bad we don't have a little sound thing, Cassie, or I'd put you right on there. Le po'o le haku. Okay, you can tell me later if I did it right. So talk about what you're doing. That is really a low entrance point. It's not very vulnerable. Oh, she gave me stars. Okay. Joan gave me stars and loves, so I must have done it right. And that's the nice thing about Hawaiian. It is very kind of, it's like it's said like it looks. Yay, she said 100%. Usually, you know me here, I usually never get anything pronounced right. So I'm like, pat on my back. Okay, so talking about what you're doing creatively is a very low vulnerability point to enter. It's just say, hey, I'm just doing this. They don't have to say or do anything. Okay, the next thing is throw your work out there, but don't listen to the feedback and don't expect feedback. Just put it out there and ignore it, because a lot of times you have to do some of these things in baby steps, especially when you're throwing it out to the public. Like I said, when you throw it out to Instagram or Facebook, you can get all kinds of comments, and you sometimes can get nasty comments, mean comments, that sort of thing. And so you're going to have to work up before you get to where you can look at those. And like I said, judicious criticism. Those who know what they're talking about. Not everybody who can type knows what they're talking about. And you know that. But sometimes it still gets to us. So just put your stuff out there. Don't worry about the comments. Don't worry about the feedback. Don't look at it. Don't read it. Turn off the comments. I think we can do that. Turn off the comments. Just put it out there. Just do your baby steps. Then once you get it out there, and once you start feeling comfortable with putting it out there, and not before you feel comfortable, then start to listen to the comments or open the comments up. But not before. There's not a certain timeline that says you have to do it this way. I think when you're willing to put your work out there, you are sharing in a vulnerable way. And so it's a privilege for people to be able to see what you're doing. And especially if you are doing it for fun, because you enjoy it and love it, and you're not doing it professionally, then really you can decide when you want those comments. You can determine if you want those comments at all. When I'm doing the fabric, I need those comments. I have to. It's a different road I'm taking in order to do something different with my designs than what some of the things that I have done previously in my life. So talk about it, put it up there, no comments, no reading the comments, no having the input, don't listen to it, and then slowly when you feel like it, when you feel like you're ready to listen to what other people say, if at all, then that's where you start to slowly listen to the comments and add, bring those people in. And if it never is online, then find people to be in your creative orbit who can give you that judicious criticism. And, email them or, hey, did you see this online that I put online? What do you think about it? You can control how it goes out into the world. You don't have to it's not like, it's not like this sacrificial thing you have to throw out there. You can have some control. It's your artwork, it's your thing. Nobody determines how it works but you. So that's the tip tonight. What is the tip? How do we phrase that? Put your work out there. Put your work out there. And let's see. I will continue to update you with the fabric thing. It'll be a while before we see it in real life, but I do really like it. I really like it. And I am glad that we have this process of putting the ideas out there and getting the judicious criticism that needs to happen for it to be workable with the conditions that have to happen. So, remember you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it, and I will see you later. Bye.